place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2024, and this is episode 976 of Living Free in Tennessee. You know, I've gotten into the sevens and the nines in my episode numbers for the late 900s, basically, and I keep doing the number switch on that. So I keep wanting to go 7-9 instead of 9-7, which is kind of funny. Hello, Palm Lou. Welcome to the live stream. I decided to go an hour early today. I did not make this decision until about an hour ago. And the reason I'm doing it is, you ever have one of those Mondays where it's like, so my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday schedules are tight. And wow, that's interesting. There's a phone in here somewhere. That could get entertaining if it starts talking. I wonder where it is. Is it over here? Oh, it's under my mic. That's pretty cool. Anyway, we're going to put that on silent. But, you know, like my Mondays and Tuesdays in particularly, they're pretty much the same schedule. Like I have the same priorities. I work like full crazy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday. And then Friday's a lighter day. And today started out like on a different foot than usual. And so I thought, well, we'll go a little early so that I can fit a swim in before I go to town. And here's the thing, you know, it's really awesome. Hello, Pippinized. My bean barrels at Hollow Roast have been selling like hotcakes. And I need to bring more bean barrels to my engraver to get engraved because I underestimated how many would sell very quickly. So I was, you know, sold out of the current run on Saturday before I sent the email Sunday saying, hey, these exist. So it's not a big deal. He's local. He can get them turned around usually quickly. And 22 of those were ordered by one person. So those 22 don't ship for another week. So really, I'm kind of delaying the production of those to get the other ones fulfilled that are coming in. So that was exciting. But that means I need to be in town about an hour earlier than usual to get to him before he closes. So it's just been a lot of things. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go an hour early because this is what I'm doing, right? I'm building the life I choose on my terms. And one of the things is that I can change the schedule if I need to. And that way, y'all still get your bean barrels. So if you haven't checked them out, but guys, go to hollowroast.com. We've got a collectible tin that we're putting coffee out in this year as sort of a special holiday item that is coming out. And apparently they look good enough. People are ordering them. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about the word of the year. And I wasn't sure I was going to do an episode on this. And I, in fact, wasn't sure I was going to choose a word for 2025. And then I changed my mind. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how my word from this year has been going, which is hone, how to find your word for next year. And I'm also going to cover our usual Monday segments, but they are a little truncated because I don't have a frugality tip. So if you have a frugality tip you want to have read on the air, this is an idea for saving money in your day-to-day life. Email it to Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com. Our featured event is just a save the date. Don't forget to save the date, December 21st. If you're in or around Middle Tennessee or want to drive to Middle Tennessee from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., we'll be doing our annual LFTN Christmas gathering. That's here at my house in Lancaster, Tennessee. I'm an hour east of Nashville. And bring a like hors d'oeuvre sort of, you know, plate of cookies or something to share. That's how we scale to how many people are here. This year, we're not going to be serving alcohol, and I'm requesting people not bring alcohol to drink at the event because I've got about 3 community members who have quit drinking recently who are coming to the party. And I would like to give them one party for Christmas as their Christmas gift for me where they're not like watching people drink alcohol. So we're going to do sort of a virgin drinks sort of event on December 21st. And we'll see you here for that. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors of the day. Sponsor number 1 is Discount Mylar Bags, discountmylarbags.com. It's a great place to source food preservation items. Mylar Bags, obviously, I get my bags for Hollow Roast Coffee there. Really great guy runs that business, Toby. And he has been doing this for a long time, but what he's really good at is sourcing things in bulk and passing on savings to you. Howdy, Skeins Girl. You can find out more at discountmylarbags.com. Our second sponsor of today's show is Hollow Roast Coffee, which is not what I'm drinking right here, right? Perhaps you can tell by the speed that I'm talking that I've already had enough coffee for the day. So I have moved on to water after having a cup of tea. So anyway, Hollow roasts are all of our orders to order, so we don't just keep a bunch of coffee on hand. And I'm very careful about how I source my beans. So I taste a bunch of beans before I choose which ones I'm going to get. In fact, we're about to get another shipment because I realized that I have one bag of Brazil beans left and we go through those like hotcakes. Anyway, find out more at hollowroast.com, and we will be launching a membership on December 1st where you can pay an annual fee and get a 10% discount, which is kind of cool. Now, if you are a member of Living Free in Tennessee, you're going to get that as part of your membership. So just know that that's the thing. Anyway, Skates Girls are like, I know, right? I want another cup so bad. It's a little bit cold outside, but not bad. And on cold mornings, it's very tempting just to drink coffee. So let me tell you why my day started a little weird. At the end of the day, yesterday, Tactical said Brunhilde was limping, which is one of the sheep. And I was like, well, let's trim her hooves because I've been putting off trimming hooves for a couple weeks now. And like start there and just get a good look at it. Luckily, her feet are fine. She did need a hoof trim though. And I'll be keeping an eye on that for the next couple days just to see how she's doing. But what that means is we've ripped the Band-Aid off and we are now trimming hooves of sheep. So we did 3 sheep this morning. I said the only way this gets done is we get up and have our morning coffee and then we go trim hooves. Otherwise, I will get into, I got to get the Monday mail out. I wanted to format a recipe guide for everybody to use this year. I wanted to, get the podcast notes down. I've got coffee orders to roast. Like all of the things start stacking up on Monday. So that's what we did. And of course, I was lucky enough. Ken Esch stopped by to help me with something. He hung my kitchen hood. And so he showed up, and then my roasting assistant hasn't been assisting because she's been like out of town a lot. She's back in town, and she texted me this morning and she said, hey, could I roast? Because here's the deal. My roaster is handling differently since we had the electric company fix their problem. So I'm getting like full power to my roaster for the first time ever as of 2 weeks ago. So I had to relearn how to roast. Not bad, but like I burned some beans. We'll just put it that way. And I told her, like, at some point when you feel like roasting, come over and do a couple batches. I have this one bag of really yucky beans that I got for like $1 a pound. Cheap beans don't taste good, not worth drinking. But I use them when I need to like recalibrate things or, if I'm teaching somebody to roast, we'll use those beans so we don't waste the good beans. And I was like, just come on over and just roast the crap beans and see how it is because it's a little bit different, but it's not that much different. And so she came over, did a batch of that, and then she handled my roasting for the day today. So that freed me up. So it was like, ooh, I traded hoof trimming for roasting today. That was pretty cool. And then I got back and there was a lot of other stuff, just like people showing up. And then I became aware that my first batch of engraved collectible tins for Hollow Roast are all spoken for. They're not all shipped, but they're all spoken for. So then I was like, okay, let's make sure I get those loaded into the car. So it's just one of those days where it cascaded. And so that's why we're starting at 1, because then I'm like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get my swim in. So I at least do the one promise of my 3 things to myself that I said I would do today and then move on. While I was going through all of that, though, I thought, I was going to take a break from the word of the year. And man, a word is starting to form for me. Okay. If you want to catch live streams this week, I know I just pulled a mulligan on you and started an hour early today, but at 9:30 Friday, I promise that one's not starting an hour early. I'll be doing Homestead Happenings. We do not have a Tuesday live tomorrow because I'm going to be getting ready for Thanksgiving. And part of getting ready for Thanksgiving is roasting a lot of coffee for Christmas orders that people are putting in. But also, I get to pre-cook some food, which is going to be really fun. So tomorrow is a lighter day because there's no show, and that'll all work out. I will be, for the audio podcasters, running the show I recorded with Amy on Thursday as part of our Spicy Sisters live stream, where we also share a lot of our favorite Thanksgiving recipes. Her carrot pie recipes sounds really good. If you're like, crap, I want that now, go to afarmichkindoflife.com and her recipe is on her website. But we had a really fun talk just about things we'd like for Thanksgiving. Our next segment is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. I have so much sympathy for people who don't have pantry space right now because my pantry has been torn apart for like months. And so my pantry is a series of wire racks shoved together under my carport with stuff in it. And the deal is this, like, it's dusty out there in the air and like they accumulate dust, which is a pain in the neck, but they're at least not accumulating rodents or construction dirt from the work going on in the pantry. Because Ken was out today, Tactical has, he's going to close in this one area that we opened up as part of replacing the roof. And it is basically a pass through from the Prepper Pantry to my attic. Needs to be closed so that if mice get in my attic, they don't get in my Prepper Pantry. And he wanted to consult with Ken on like, how do you think you'd close it? And then once that's closed, I believe we're moving some utility items around because my Prepper Pantry is where the water heater is. And ultimately where, plumbing comes together, and there are freezers out there for like all the frozen stuff. So we're going to re-envision or reimagine what goes where from a circuitry standpoint and also for stored boxes so that it works more efficiently coming in and out, because it's like, while it's ripped up, I might as well just get that all taken care of too. So once that's done, then I can start taking the stuff that's under the carport and put it in the Prepper Pantry. But freezing weather is upon us, and anything that's liquid that's out under the carport right now gets to come into my house. So I'm going to be binning up. I'm basically taking all this stuff and putting it in bins by category so that I can more easily move the things that need to move and then stack the bins in my house, which is not ideal. But I know some of you guys are in studio apartments figuring out how to store pantry items. So I'm feeling it in my heart how you live right now, because I have been very lucky, very happy to have this old utility room / garage space. It's not a huge garage space, but it's like a 1-car garage for a tiny car, like a smart car. You couldn't fit a real car in there, but it's a garage door wide, just not a car's length long. And I've had that for years where I could just, more easily rotate stuff through there. And then all my canned goods are in the house anyway. So that's been just slow going on the repairs, and getting stuff into bins will be fine. I mean, long term, they're going to end up in those yellow and black bins in the hanging shelves like I have in the Self-Reliance Festival trailer. But between now and then, I told Tactical, I'm like, any bin on the property that is empty and has a lid needs to be under the carport so I can start putting things in those bins, because, I do want to be standardized on the kind of bin, because those work really great sliding in and out of shelves because of how they're designed. And then if I keep myself to the 17-gallon ones, which are not the ones most people use for that, they're a little bit smaller. They don't get too heavy for me to handle. I also am not planning to fill them full of liquids like, dish soap or laundry detergent. That being said, I have shortened my window of what I keep on hand as part of my rotating pantry while I'm doing this. And I'm taking a good look at that, and a good look at, we were promised port shutdown sometime in January when the port strike was turned off, right? So with that in mind, as they might happen, I may look at like expanding like a 6-month window on some of the things that I like to have. But mostly because most of our food's coming either locally or from the land, it's like that part's handled. It's just if I want something, a specific kind of soap for something, or like I don't even really care that much about the toilet paper or paper towels. Like we can use rags. There were ways to wash your bum before toilet paper was invented. So if that becomes a problem again, then I'm just not going to worry about it. And that was strangely the thing that started going out of stock immediately when the port strike was going to happen in October. So just know that if the port strike happens in January or February, like they said they delay it till, if they like deliver on what they said they were going to do, then probably once again, we're going to be building toilet paper forts at home to hide from the port strike, right? So, but that's, I mean, I think about that when I'm looking at the pantry, and then I'm making sure I have enough things like salt and all of the vinegar and things I like to use. Like I can make vinegar, but it's super convenient to have a few jugs of that like white vinegar that you can get, you know, for $3 or $4 a gallon. It's a very cleaning agent, for example, and it's very good at pickling things. We are still harvesting herbs. I didn't realize it because we've had some frosts in the last week, but the chocolate mint's not dead yet. So Tactical went out and got some of the chocolate mint for a friend of mine who has strep throat to use in her tea. And I was like, how much more is out there? Because I'm low on dried chocolate mint right now. And so anything we can harvest would be good so that there is a better supply going into winter, because I've just been hitting the mint tea a little bit more this year for whatever reason. So that's really cool. We've got oregano and thyme still in the yard. We still got rosemary looking good. The basil died this week, except I have one like sorry looking plant in my raised bed that I covered with plastic this year, right? So that's, you know, my Swiss chard is just doing so well right now. So that's the one thing. And I left it under plastic for 4 days straight. So it was like a little greenhouse under there. And I opened it up and it was like a Swiss chard explosion. And the basil plant was still alive. And I'm like, oh, I thought you were going to die because it got cold. It really looks like it wants to die, though. And I had cut it way back before that to harvest the rest of the leaves that were there. So that's all coming together and getting dried. My goal is to have my spice drying rack out of the kitchen before the Christmas party because it takes up space. But I have a wire shelf with things hanging on it right now to dry. And I usually do lettuce on that. I'd like to find a place to put that permanently that's not in the way, but that stupid shelf, every time I use it, it's in my way somewhere. And that's not ideal. So eventually when I finish, you know, getting the kitchen rebuilt and the mudroom rebuilt, I think what'll happen is that there will be a built-in place for stuff like that, or a better way to do that, because like right now it's like you use what we have to do what you can, right? And that's what's happening right now. But you know, as I design this house to be more effective as a homestead house, having a dedicated place to dry herbs or grow lettuce is super helpful. And, you know, having a dedicated place to do food preservation prep is super helpful. So those are the things I think about as I'm designing Zone Zero. Also, having a canning kitchen outside is a great idea because on hot days, having all the extra heat from canning outside is a great place to keep that extra heat. And then lastly, you know, having the talk with Amy last week about recipes got me to thinking that it might be kind of fun to have like a holiday recipe guide. So I collected about, I don't know, not a bunch of recipes, like some cookie recipes, my buttery chestnut dressing recipe, and the cheesecake recipe that we talked about last week, and put them into just a Word document with a little header that if you want to see like my gingerbread cookie, have it printable for the gingerbread cookie recipe. Like all of these recipes, by the way, are at livingfreeintennessee.com. If you're a member, you have access to all of the recipes of the week. If you're not a member, many of these recipes are available publicly. But I made a little printable for you in case you want to, you know, do the molasses crinkle cookies for Christmas or Thanksgiving, or you want to do the cheesecake, or you're like, man, I got chestnuts, but I'd really like to look at Nicole's chestnut dressing recipe in writing. If you want to download that, it's just a PDF. Go to livingfreeintennessee.com and scroll until you see the little thumbnail for the recipes. Click on that. It will take you to a PDF. You're going to have to download the PDF, or you can try to print it from your browser because it'll just open in your browser if you do that. So that is out there for y'all. That's my Thanksgiving present to you, is hopefully I can take some of the stress off of your Thanksgiving by sharing some recipes that are easy to print. Next up, we have the weekly shopping report from Joe. And here's what Joe has to say. I'm still getting energy drinks at Dollar Tree. So we checked that out, and they seemed pretty busy with 2 checkout lines open instead of the usual one. Aldi was next. They had wet cat food, so we grabbed a case. Eggs are still marked at a limit of 2 dozen. There are a couple of price drops. Staple prices were as follows. Bread is $1.39. Eggs are $2.97. Whole milk, $3.03. Heavy cream, $5.39. Orange juice, $3.45. Butter, $3.99. Bacon, $3.99. Potatoes, $3.29. Sugar, $2.69. Flour, $1.79. And 80% lean ground beef is $4.29. I checked the online price of a 2x4x8 Home Depot, and it's still $3.85. And a gallon of untainted regular gasoline is steady at $3.59.9. Next up, we would have a frugality tip, but we don't have one. So again, if you have one, send it to me via email. Lastly, Operation Independence is where I talk about building local ongoing revenue into my life. And this all started because when I started the podcast, I was in a lot of debt. I paid off my house this year, guys. And we started gamifying the saving of money here. And we started gamifying finding ways to not spend money so we didn't have to earn more money. So like the money plus the taxes you pay on the money to pay a guy to do the thing. And then also we started celebrating, different ways of getting more stable income. Because at the time I was financially dependent on one source mostly of income. Like I had some rental properties that weren't making money and that they were costing money. And then I had an Airbnb that was making money sometimes, and that was on my property. And that's where Tactical lives now. And it was just a very important reminder for me. It was part of my 3 things was a financial aspect. And the first step towards taking control of my finances was stop the bleeding. And then second was to repair the wound, which was the debt wound. Okay. So that's where Operation Independence comes from, because to be independent financially, I have to look at the big, ugly beast of finances in the eye, stare it down, and figure out what I'm going to do about it. And I think one of the reasons people get into debt and stay in debt is you go into denial about how bad the problem is. And every time you go to look at it, you're like, "Ooh, that's too ugly to look at." So if you're in that situation right now, and I know with grocery prices double and all of the inflation and some challenges on the job market for certain sectors, some people may be sliding back. I know I'm fighting right now not to slide back, to be completely blunt. But if I don't look at it and I don't assess it, then it's impossible to fix it. So our step towards independence here right now, where we're focused, besides selling as much coffee for holiday gifts as possible between now and Christmas, is we have lamb for sale. I am processing 4 lambs. They may go in next week. They may go in January. I have a date in January, but if there is a date that comes up sooner, we'll get them in sooner. And they are at perfect time right now in the next few weeks, till January, for processing. And we are selling the meat at $8 a pound hanging weight. If you go to livingfreeintennessee.com, you can put a deposit down on a whole or a half lamb. There's only one more spot left. So if you want to grab that, do it. If not, I'll eat the meat if it doesn't sell. But it does, if we sell the meat, then we pay for the hay. And then, and then it's the grass that's grown our meat. That's how we build it into our lives. Anyway, are you guys ready for the main topic of today's show? I see Jim. Hello, Jim. You're in there. Good to see you digitally again. Jim, he's been showing up to events with a shirt with his YouTube icon on it. So we all know who he is, which is super helpful. So anyway, the main topic of today's show is the word of the year. How many of you in the comments know or have heard about the word of the year? Just write a Y or an N. I'm curious how many of you watching today have tapped into the word of the year. Also, Skanes Girl says, being from hurricane country, you never let that get under 100 rolls. Your supply of toilet paper. Yeah, I have a 6-month supply buffer at all time. Okay, I've got an N. We've got a Y. So we've got both. The word of the year is a concept that Jenny brought to me, and I don't know where she got it, but another N from Skane's Girl. Okay, this is gonna change your life, guys. So Jenny came to me and she was like, "Hey, I changed my life by using the word of the year, and this is how it works, and blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh, tell me more." Because I do the My Three Things method. We have our webinar coming up on a free webinar on January 9th to help you set your life strategic plan. But the word of the year is boiling down what you want to change about yourself, the world around you, where you want to focus for a whole year so that you can very simply know that's my word of the year, right? And it just you just keep going back to your word. Does this help me hone things? My word this year's hone, 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 and refine. Like in that sense is what I've been thinking about it as. And it kind of goes back to this: the only person you can change is you. If you're in a bad relationship and your partner is a terrible person, the only person you can change is you. You can't ever change them. And often we go into friendships and relationships thinking we're going to change somebody. They can change themselves for sure, but you can't change them. And really embracing what that means can be hard because it feels better to be like, hey, it's that other person's fault. But by participating in whatever interaction is happening, you're making that also happen. And, you think about if, the best way to avoid a gunfight is not to be around where the gunfights happen. Does that mean you'll never get in a gunfight? No, that doesn't, especially if you have a gun and, gunfights happen. But you're a whole lot less likely to get into a gunfight if you don't go hang out with the gangsters on the street who also have guns and fight, right? So it doesn't mean nothing that bad that happens to you is that everything bad that happens to you is your fault, but your reaction to bad things that happen to you can set a foundation for more bad things to happen to you. And then it kind of does become your fault, right? So the word of the year is a way to anchor yourself on one thing for the whole year to take charge. And Jenny used that method when she realized she wanted something different for herself. And I think her first word was heal, because she had a lot of, I think, trauma and other things to get through. And once she had done that, I think she may have done that for 2 years, she realized she didn't have enough friends. And so she chose connect, and she made effort actually, the reason that she and I are as well associated as we are was in her word of looking to connect with people or be friends with people. She made a concerted effort to go out to people's houses and see them. Well, one of the things that happened as a result of that is when Tactical was at his lowest after getting out of the military, she rolls up my driveway with permission, like she was allowed to come. And I was sitting there and Tactical was not there. And I said, he's ready to because we were trying to get the VA to pay for psychological assistance, like a counselor for him to talk to. And they kept making him do all this weird stuff. Like he had to take a class on what psychological help means. And he had to be evaluated multiple times about, do you really need it? Now we're talking about somebody who is declared disabled because of PTSD, right? So it's, but in order to get any help at all, the only thing they were willing to do without looking at him was prescribe drugs. And it's like, well, how do you know it's the right drugs? Right. So he was like, I'm willing to do that, but I want to have a relationship with a psychiatrist on a regular basis so that it can be assessed about if that sort of thing is working or not. Right. So she rolls up, and I had just talked to him and said, like, are you just willing to pay a psychologist yourself or a psychiatrist, either one? And he was like, yeah, I got to do something because this isn't working. And that was after like the fifth time that the VA had made an appointment for him to finally talk to somebody, and then called him and said, never mind, you can't talk to him. I'm like, this is like what they do to torture you. They get your hopes up and then they dash them. If you're ever wondering why so many veterans commit suicide, that's one of the problems. Like, already not in a good mental place, and guess what's happening? Hey, we'll get you help. Never mind. We'll take it away. So she rolled up, and I said, he's willing to pay somebody, but everybody I call is like, either like, some of them hung up on me, really busy, not taking anybody new, like all of that. And she's like, hey, I got a friend who just moved to Cookville. Let me text her and see if she can see some. And she specializes in PTSD. Guess what? That was the connection that was needed, because she chose that word, and because she happened to walk up my driveway that day. That was the thing that changed everybody's perspective. Margot, yes, it's my fault. I started early for a variety of reasons. I posted 2 p.m. and then emailed 1 p.m. I'm a bad person. I was like, I know I'm going to have people coming who are like sad because they were going to come at 2. But if I had started at 2, I wouldn't have been able to give enough time to this to give it the proper time, because I have a hard stop time today. So I wanted to give it a little extra time. Anyway, so that's what the word of the year can do. Or my friend Nancy, who in the same year I chose grow, she chose grow. And the thing about the word of the year is you choose a word like grow, and you focus in on that, and mentally you're setting the stage for, I'm going to grow, right? Like I did that in 2020. That was the year I met John Willis. That's the year I burned my roaster caught on fire, and I did the Kickstarter for a new roaster, which ultimately made the business grow. But there was a lot of shrinking in there. There was a lot of the opposite of growing happen. We had the 2020 shutdowns where there was absolutely no revenue for 2 weeks in my business at first. It was really weird. And so when you're choosing a word, what can happen is you experience the opposite of the word, so that you learn to take the action to make the word you want to make happen. And this year, I chose the word hone, because I've been focused on so many broad, big things all the time. People are like, how do you do it all the time? Well, I use the My Three Things method, right? But also, I don't ever stop. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because I am a more solid, steady leader. I am a more quality producing person if I give myself enough time to do things all the way. And that's, and if I'm not distracted. Yesterday was a perfect example of this. I painted half the roasting shack yesterday. The reason I painted it yesterday instead of roasting coffee is the weather was perfect for it. And Ryan Steva had just been out and replaced one piece of my siding, because the west facing wall just gets like nailed with rain. And the original paint had worn out enough that that it had started to impact the siding. And when the windows were installed, they didn't do flashing the way they needed to on those windows. So he popped the window out, did proper flashing on it, replaced the piece of siding that needed to be replaced. Luckily, I only had to replace one piece of siding. And then he caulked any gaps that were there. So he did like a lot of the prep work needed for painting for me. And I'm very thankful for that. So the deal was, I had like bare wood facing west, which is not what you want, because it's like southwest rains hit us all the time. And so I was like, well, the weather's good. I'm going to at least get that one side painted. And I hit it. And on a Sunday, I don't have a lot of interruptions. I don't have people, I don't have to ship orders, because the mail is not coming to pick them up anyway. I usually roast on Sunday so that Monday's easier, but I decided I'm not going to roast. I'm going to paint. And then I think it took me 6 hours, by the way, to do both sides. And the first side was done in, I think, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours. And I didn't get interrupted, and I just did the whole thing. The other side, which had a little bit more cut-in work to do, also I had a customer on Holler Roast having trouble with the checkout cart. And so I was interacting with Tom about why that might be. And I was like painting and answering texts. And then while he looked at other things, painting and then answering texts. And the poor guy had to get verbal text from me finally. My phone case looks like I've got paint all over it, right? Because that was a thing. Luckily, I haven't upgraded to my above phone yet, so I didn't ruin my above phone case. But I'm doing that. I got to do that this week. But anyway, it was 4 hours for me to do that second side. So it was 2 hours for me uninterrupted to do one side. And that includes going very high on a ladder in a way I'm uncomfortable, which meant I was slow on the ladder. And then 4 hours, twice as long, with interruptions on the other side. So part of my purpose in choosing the word hone was I realized I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot at once. I have quality issues when I get distracted. And I am actually less efficient allowing myself to be interrupted. Right? So I could have had the whole thing done in 4 hours if I hadn't have been interrupted. And I allowed that interruption to happen because it affected my bottom line if my shopping cart wasn't working right, having just sent my email about the Holler Roast BB, which are selling like hotcakes, right? So I was like, I want every one of those sales to go through so that, we have the income for a Holler Roast. Otherwise, I would have just ignored my phone and gotten it done in probably 2.5 hours. But yeah, Margo says, I'm super uncomfortable on ladders. Yeah. I don't mind being up a few steps on the ladder, but I had to go way up the ladder. And then the grounds, it's like in the house, it's not as bad because your floor is basically flat. But outside, there's soft spots and there's tilts and there's all this stuff. I ended up getting the whole thing done and asking Tactical to help me with this one spot I couldn't reach. I was like, just help me place this ladder in the right way that makes sense, that's steady, so that when I go up there, I don't bust my rear, because I don't really need to be fostering a broken wrist or something going into Christmas roasting. Well, ever really, but also going into Christmas roasting system. Plus, if I have to have a cast, I'm pretty sure I can't go in the swim spot, and that would be no fun at all. So, that was just like, I felt like that was one last illustration of the word hone, because as a result of the word hone, we're going to do Self-Reliance Festival big one time a year instead of less big twice a year. And I also realized that for my own financial well-being, Holler Roast Coffee has to be a bigger focus in my life, because it's the thing that pretty much holds us together. That and some of the podcast stuff I do are the things that make money. And so doing the things that make money makes sense. And I like doing both those things. It's just also really tempting to start a new business unit every 2 seconds. So I actually have a really fun call scheduled tomorrow where I go through all of the business things I do and how much time I put in and what the profit is, to just assess, like, one last time, how do I go forward? Because the thing is, if I double my time in Holler Roast Coffee, does that double the revenue it's making? Maybe, maybe not. Because if I'm not smart about how I do it, if I'm not honing the edge of the knife that is Holler Roast, then yeah, it's not going to be good, right? It's just more time. And so that's not how you want to do that. What you want to do is increase the time on the thing making money in a way that makes money, if that's your goal with the thing, right? So this all goes back to, though, having a word to anchor on and realizing that part of why you're doing that is the only person you can change is you, because you can choose a word of the year. And if part of your mental state going into that is not also centered around, so that I can transform myself, then it's going to be less of a motivator for you. So yeah, we've got some chatter here from the ladies about, I have to think about the fact that I'm on my own. I'm my own backup. If I go down, who will take care of my animals? Yeah. When we talk about designing a homestead for older age, it's a good idea to work on building that backup plan too. but also design things so you're not being pulled down the hillside by the sheep you just grabbed, which is totally what happened to Tactical today when he grabbed Amy. But he held on to her, and then eventually she gave up, and he didn't get hurt. But we need to have a better way to catch our sheep than just grabbing them and then they run, because they don't like it. Some of the sheep are fine, like little sheep just lets us grab her, but the other sheep don't really like it. And I understand. I mean, little sheep doesn't like it either, but she knows us well enough. So yeah, that's a thing. Having some things in check to make things safer for yourself is great, because if you get hurt, then everything suffers. Jim says build community as a backup. Absolutely. Homesteads work better with community around you. Well, here's the thing I liked about the word of the year when Jen brought it to my attention, and it was that it fits really well with the My Three Things method, because the My Three Things method, you're setting, life vision, life purpose, 3 areas where you're going to focus to get there, and then 3 goals under each of those for the next 12 to 18 months. And then you boil that down to a daily up to 3 things, not always 3 things that you do that are moving you forward. And if you can anchor the part of your vision you're moving towards in a single word, which kind of encompasses this goal seems really hard to me, so I'm going to take that one on. Or if I just focus on this for a year, then it's gone forever. Like one of my 12 to 18 month goals that took longer than 12 to 18 months was to pay off debt. But I had to keep concentrating on it till it was done, right? So the word of the year fits really well with the My Three Things method. And so I've started doing it annually about this time of year, sometimes a little earlier. I start thinking, how did the word hone go? And I will say that I was pretty bedraggled this year by September, having tried to hone things so I wouldn't be bedraggled all the time. It was like I needed to become so bedraggled that I couldn't just rhinoceros through. I literally, by July, could not rhinoceros through everything I'd committed to doing. And I was forced to make choices, and I was forced to find people to help me who wanted to help me. And if you look at the Self-Reliance Festival team, those people had my butt this year. Like they worked hard to make, and if you were at the October Self-Reliance Festival, it was fabulous. And had they not joined the team, I don't even know if I would have been able to pull off the event. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been able. Like the event would have happened, but man, it would not have been good. So I'm very thankful. It was almost like I had to be torn down so badly that I saw what was right in front of my face the whole time. Because that's the other thing, is everybody who helped me was right in front of my face the whole time. And yeah, Andy says, brought my wife as a date and she loved SRF. So the thing that I did not expect from Hone was how very overworked I would be before I had the breakthrough to realize how to cut and what to cut. And I will say this, I still don't feel like I'm done with it. Like I have this meeting tomorrow to help finish honing. And I almost was going to do hone next year too, because I'm like, I'm just not done with the word. Like I haven't, usually if you have your epiphany earlier in the year, you can kind of cruise through. Nope, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. It just kept coming. And now, so the good thing that's happening is the Hollow Roast BB is selling like hotcakes. But it took me breaking down to almost nothing to have the idea. I know, let's do a collectible tin, right? And then that idea happened months ago, and it kept there were barrier after barrier after barrier to getting this done, down to it was gonna have this pewter sticker on it with Hollow Roast, and I got those all ordered, and they took for flipping ever to get here, and then they looked terrible. They looked terrible. I was like, I spent how much money on that, and they looked terrible, and then 25% of them were damaged, and they reprinted that 25% and they actually gave me a little bit more. And the new ones that came looked beautiful. Well, in the interim, I had decided to get the tins engraved because I couldn't, like, I can't put this chintzy looking sticker on a tin and call it a premium tin, even though that stupid sticker costs more than the engraving. Not very much more, but more, right? So it's like everything had to have something, and that happened. So, so it's it fits with my three things, but it also ends up being something that you got to be ready for. So how do you find your word of the year? This is the hard part. This can take for, or right now, like you're listening to this going, my word is grow, my word is connect, my word is create, my word is love, my word is self, my word is, like, you may just know what your word is, right? My first word was focus. And I had it on my wall above my bed, focus, because I was having trouble focusing on anything. And that taught me a lot. Grow taught me a lot. Grow was 2020. It was just like, grow was a very memorable year. Very memorable year. Sometimes it's tempting to choose rest for me, but then I'm not sure I'm ready for the opposite of rest. So I'm just going to take my 2-week break over Christmas, and then hopefully that'll be enough. If you want to find your word, start thinking about things like, first of all, having an idea of where you want to go really helps, right? And then what things stand in your way of that? And which of those things do you want to focus on? And if you're a writer, you can journal about it. If you're a talker, you can talk into your phone and go back and listen, like whatever. Journaling really helps on this one. Talk to your friends about it. Hey, Preparedness HQ, welcome. But spend some time of reflection. And to make that happen, what I like to do is have time in the morning to reflect. So I like to have 15 or 20 minutes in the morning where I'm purposeful about, this is what I'm doing. Like right now, my notes are on this piece of paper about my 2025 word of the year, and I haven't chosen it yet. I only decided to choose a word of the year over the weekend while painting the roasting shack. Because to some extent, I need to rebuild the homestead after this. Last 5 years, it's gotten hit hard by a lot of changes. And then this year it got hit hard by, I was in California a lot. So, painting the shack was like, I am rebuilding finally the way that it needs to be done. And I am doing it, right? I'm not paying somebody to do it. I'm not asking Tactical to do it. Like, I'm doing it. And so that's made a huge difference. But that was when I realized, 6 hours of painting, you have time to think about. I listened to CJ Kilmer's podcast. I listened to Jack Spirko. I listened to music. I listened to silence, like all of those things. But I was thinking about, like, what is the next step? Really, like the one step. And then this morning I got up and spent time thinking about some things. And I have a tendency still to, in order to help everybody else, or in order to do this thing, sacrifice things that are important to me. Like I break promises to myself to deliver on promises to other people, thus deprioritizing myself. One of the coolest things about 75 Hard is you have to exercise twice a day. And in order to do that, you can't break your promise to yourself to exercise, right? So you're building your health, and like you're prioritizing your physical health is one of the things that's happening there. And it's very easy to deprioritize your health or deprioritize your finances to help other people. I mean, we had that flood come through East Tennessee. I wanted to give people the shirt off my back, of course, because that's who I am. That's who I am. So it's something to just spend time reflecting on. And then as you sort of narrow down what it is, you'll come around a concept. And the concept might be promise or wealth or growth. And then you start looking at other words around that word until one resonates with you. My original word last year was refine, but it didn't quite bring me to the place where hone did. And so I started looking at different things, and hone seemed like a much more visual word. And it was also closer to what I wanted to achieve for myself. So that's how you find your word of the year. And then, then you announce it to everybody, and then you've got it. And then that's your word. Can you change words halfway through the year? Absolutely. If you're done with a word, you can be done with a word. You can start your word of the year anytime. If you choose your word of the year after listening to this and going through Thanksgiving weekend and like having time to deal with it, just start. If you don't have a word of the year, just start. Margot says, I like the word of the year to give me a push. When the calendar rolls, you do not have to stop, but start a new one anyway. Yeah, so hone is not done. Hone might be done by the end of the calendar year for me, Margot. But I do feel like there's a lot more to do. Like we defragged how I track finances this year because a friend of mine, Erin, showed up and she's like, I specialize in this. I'm a CFO. There's nothing that you can give me that's too messy for me not to figure out how to automate that. And so I was like, here's all the things I need to track. And she did. I've been trying to get to that state with QuickBooks or any other financial tracking software for 2 years. And she's just like, here you go. I was like, well, I'm glad that happened because it makes my whole life easier, right? So anyway, hone for me for 2025 has gone well. It took me forever to turn the corner. I would say I turned the corner in July from the opposite of hone to really figuring out what best practices I need to have in place. And some of them are, I changed how I planned my week. Like I just reorganized it. And some of it was more about how I choose what's the real priority, how I build time for myself into that, so that when I'm doing the things that free up my mind, I have time to have the ideas that make things move forward. Like I was swimming in the swim spa when I realized I've wanted to launch a membership for Hollow Roast for a long time, and what that membership would look like. Because the thing that's kept me from launching it is, what is the membership? The membership gets you 10% off, which is, similar. If you are a member of other programs with discounts, it's a similar discount. If you're a member of Living Free in Tennessee, you will get a Hollow Roast membership automatically as part of your membership to LFTN. But part of why I want to go to the membership is if I transition into a PMA, the members are already the members, right? Which could happen in the next 3 years. It's not something I'm planning to do with Hollow Roast right away, but I may move to where you have to be a member to order coffee, in part because there will be a time where we've maxed out what we can sell based on the model I have. And I'm not planning to change Hollow Roast away from that sort of craft coffee roasted to order small batch thing. That's part of what makes the coffee delicious. And I could go larger. I could build a factory. I could outsource to other roasters who are bigger, but it will impact the flavor. And that's not what I want to do with that. If I do that other thing, I will do that as a separate brand. Hollow Roast is Hollow Roast is Hollow Roast at this point. So at that point, there will be a certain number of memberships. And once the memberships are full, they're full. That's where I see that going as it develops. So as we move into 2025, though, I did decide to do a new year word of the year. And it's going to be centered around this concept of not breaking promises to myself anymore, which I don't do it as much as I used to, but I still do it. And every time I do it, I'm like, why did I do that? Something on delivering and discipline, and something around wealth right now. That's what I'm thinking. Now at Jack's, if you watched, if you were listening to the My Three Things episode, that it was sort of a replay from the presentation I gave at Jack's, I asked him what he thought my word was. and he gave me a word. I can't remember what he gave me. And then at the very end, he's like, give me time. And then at the very end, he's like, I think I know what your word is, but it's a pretty ballsy word, Nicole. And I'm like, okay. He's like, well, first, what do you think your word is? And I think if there's one word to describe me and my brand, it's connect. It's what we do at LFTM. We connect people because when we connect the right people, they have breakthroughs and they go off and they prosper. That's what I'm best at doing, is seeing that in people and making those introductions. And he's like, oh, I can see that. He's like, but your word might be create, but it's a ballsy word. So then I'm looking at the word of the year, wondering, should my word of the year be in the direction of create? And the answer is, I don't know yet. The answer is, I will be journaling on that for the next few weeks. And I invite you to start sharing your ideas with me about what your word of the year is going to be. Like, does anybody in the comments right now, are you leaning towards a word right now? If you are, like, type it in there, or type the word you did this year. I'm curious to know sort of in what direction you are. And then let's head over to our social platforms. We've got the Discord server, we've got the Telegram channel, we've got a Facebook group, and start talking with each other there about what your word might be. You can do it in the comments on YouTube too, like however you want to do it. What word are you starting to think about, or what, sentence describes the direction you're going? Because that's how we get to the word of the year, and that's how we start making the basic changes that need to be made in our lives. Anyone want to throw a word up there? We've got a focus up here. I seem to have already been working on the word focus. Focus is a good word. Just remember what unfocus looks like. But Skeins girl, I know you've been going through a lot of changes, so you probably really know what unfocus looks like, because you're moving right now, or maybe you've finished moving. I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's something that really helps two things. Instill in yourself the reality that the only person that you can change is you. So make a good change. And then see what happens to the world around you, A. And two, really take tangible steps forward towards your vision, which is a very important thing to do. Anyway, organize. Oh, that's a good word, Margot. That's a good word. Yeah, I'm like, create, deliver. Create's starting to resonate with me now. I don't know. What do you think? You guys can tell me what you think after the show. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollerworks.com. Two, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out and make it a great week.